This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Hello, Tatiana.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you here all the way from the United States.
Yes.
We kind of traded places. I just got back from a vacation in the U.S., and now here you are from the U.S. and in Norway to visit your uncle, your aunt, some little cousins, nieces and nephews, and the whole shebang. How's it going?
It's going great. It's really great to be here live and in person, and
it's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. Great to be back in Norway. The last time I was here was 2015, so it's been a while. I feel like I've changed. I'm older. Everyone's been through a lot.
We all get older.
Yes.
What a thing. What a thing.
Yeah.
So you now this is your second time then, or had you been in Norway before 2015?
I had been once before as well when I was like 7. So that trip,
that long ago.
Yeah, I remember bits and pieces of that trip, but now it's nice to have more, full on memories.
That's interesting you say that, because that is the exact same situation with Snoopy and I, our two children.
Yeah.
They're 17 and 15 now, so they were finally old enough to really get it, why they were there and the whole experience with family and everything. It's just everything gets better with traveling experiences, I think.
Yes.
Older I get.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same for my kids. It's probably the same for you.
Yeah.
Appreciating what Norway has to offer every time you come here.
Absolutely.
I don't know. What does Norway have to offer? I don't know.
Well, what's really nice is
family.
Last time I came,
family
is huge. Yeah. Last time I came was in the winter, and I've really enjoyed being here with the beautiful greenery, being able to be in and around the water. That's been really, really nice. And it's not as hot as everywhere else I've been, so it's been lovely.
I got to tell you, if there's a downside to being back home in Ohio these last few weeks, it was that heat.
Yes.
It was 90, 93 degrees a couple of days and just crazy humid. I don't know if they're used to it. I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
That Lake Erie, bringing all that moisture in there is just horrible.
Yes.
I want you to, if you would please, say a couple of things about the work that you're doing. Now, you were my guest. I guess it's going on 2 years ago now.
Yeah, maybe even 3. I think it was 2020.
You know what? It was 2020. That was the first year I did it. Yeah, it was 2023, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been wanting to have you in, and now here you are live in person.
Yeah.
One thing that I love to do on my program is help fellow artists promote what they're doing. Talk about your work, what you have coming up with your One Lady show.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. Right when I get back, so soon in August and September, I'll be working on the world premiere of a new concert musical theater piece called Penelope at the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, which is about an hour north of New York City. And yes, it's a one-woman plus band. Please, peace. There's a band, and they'll be with me, supporting me. And it's a new work by Alex Bechtel, Grace McLean, and Eva Steinmetz, based on the Odyssey, the classic old text, the Odyssey, but a retelling from the point of view of Penelope, the wife of Odysseus. But it's as if Penelope were, putting on a 70-minute concert just about her waiting. If for everyone who hasn't read the Odyssey lately, which I did read, and it was interesting, actually.
Go and read it, people. I've read it.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
I read a good translation. It was interesting.
Check it out.
She has been waiting for him for 20 years at the point of when the musical takes place. So it's about waiting
into her whole thought process. That whole thing
the
about
anger,
waiting, the anxiety,
grief, the love, the frustration. And also the music is some of the most stunning music I've ever heard. The music is really, really gorgeous in this piece. So I'm very excited for that. And that's Penelope.
That's Penelope, into the mind, the inner workings of the mind of Penelope.
Yeah.
I like that it's a different twist. I had an author friend in here, Lisa Strum, who writes historical fiction.
Cool.
Which demands a lot of research because it's based on actual historical facts that she then turns into a work of fiction.
Yes.
And I see similarities with this thing, with the point of view of Penelope that probably hasn't been explored in too many works up
Exactly.
until now. So it's based on something that's already there, and now it's a twist. I like that
Yeah.
creative process.
And that's something that I'm finding a lot of theater companies are doing these days, which
Yeah,
is really exciting in many ways because it's like we've told a lot of these stories before, so how can
right.
we tell them in a new light? I think it's also important to invest and produce in new works.
Oh,
Um
sure, sure.
but this is a new work. So
Yeah.
it's a new work with a familiar way in.
Mhm.
Um but it straddles the time period of it feels sort of ambiguous, which I like. It's
Right,
She
right.
uses very contemporary language in the
Okay, I was
show.
going to ask that. Is it in the
Yeah,
Shakespearean?
not at all. No,
Okay.
it's also definitely like PG-13, I would say, but
Oh, I love it.
it's yeah. But she talks about, she says things about the weaving, which Penelope does in the Odyssey, and like the suitors. All the plot points are the same, but the language sounds
Right.
extremely contemporary.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah.
Again, history with a twist.
Yes. Yes.
What what brought you into the arts? You know, you sing,
Yeah.
you write,
Yeah.
you play
Pia
a little
piano I did
guitar,
study.
yeah,
Piano and cello, actually, I played all the time
cello.
growing up, and
Okay.
I should get back to playing again, but I played for 8 years growing up.
Something
Mhm.
got you interested in this? Was it a particular occurrence in your young life at that time? Was it a another artist that you looked up to? Maybe a combination of the two?
Yeah,
What can you
definitely.
say?
I would say a combination of the 2. My family was really supportive of the arts, and just we always had music playing, we watched movies, went to
Mhm.
theater, um, just a big arts family, and it was one of those things. As I get older, I'm like, I just knew. I just was like, this I love putting on little shows for my family. I do feel like, once I started doing full on performances when I was about 10 or 11, I started doing uh performances at this big theater in Atlanta where I grew up, the Fox Theater, which is a huge
Oh, of
4,500
course.
seat theater, like
Yes.
gorgeous. And I was like in the kids ensembles of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and Beauty and the Beast. And
What a great stage to stand on at that age.
yeah, it was
Lucky you.
stunning.
I
And
bet. I bet.
yeah, I remember doing my first show there and immediately thinking like, oh yes, this is indeed, I have now put into practice,
I'm in the right place. Yeah.
yes, what I thought I would love to do, and I do really want to do it. Um, but I
So
had yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it wasn't one occurrence. It wasn't one mentor or one figure that inspired you. It was kind of a
Yeah, kind of
conglomerate
everything.
of influences that opened your eyes to what entertainment and art could be.
Yeah, and my parents invested in me and in my training. Yeah.
I wonder how many. I don't know whether it's a pop artist, whether it's a jazz artist, whether it's a writer
Mhm.
who never came to be because they didn't have
Yeah.
parental support. Isn't
Yeah.
that key in this whole thing?
It's huge because you know, it can be a very challenging path in every sense, financially, emotionally. It's can be a very, the stability is not there. So you have to really love it, and it really makes it easier if you have people who believe in you.
The stability is not there. What can you say more about that? What do you mean by that?
Of choosing a career in
Oh,
this
I see.
path.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, yes, yes.
here we are. We're adults. We've made our decisions,
Yes.
but where's the stability? You know,
Yes.
we've been talking about this a little bit in my living room.
Yeah.
We're giggers.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing solid about that. You don't
No.
know what's going to happen the next day. But doesn't that, when it comes to creativity, isn't that uncertainty a motivating factor?
Yeah, and I
It kind of
think
forces me at least to be in the moment when I'm writing a new song or when I'm in the
yeah.
moment because there's no sense in worrying about how big it's going to be or if it's going to hit or not because
Yes.
we just don't know those things. So I've kind of, I hope, matured enough to where that's not a concern. And I'm
Yeah.
just in that moment of creativity.
Yeah.
Is that something you experience?
Yeah, that ability to be very present in what
Yes.
you're doing because it has an end date too. That's a
Right.
real thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't last forever, which is bittersweet, but also I was talking with my cousin the other day about how, because I do all these different jobs, I'm able to like meet so many wonderful people all the time. Like I have
Yes,
new
yes,
coworkers all the time
yes.
and they come into my life and
Each
change my
project is a
life.
new family.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it just opens up your mind in so many ways. And I I'm not at all where I thought I would be in a wonderful way, just because I never could have expected some of the twists
right,
and turns
right.
because of these every new opportunity.
And I kind of alluded to the fact that we don't care about success. We do care about success. We
Yeah.
want that high of applause.
Yeah.
We want that high of being recognized for the work that we do.
Hmm.
But if we get too caught up in that, I found anyway, that to get too caught up in that, or to expect that, or to want that too much,
Yes.
it pulls me out of the moment when I should be more focused, and also more open to the enjoyment of the creative process.
Absolutely. I find that the more I've been working in my career, the more I've found that what I'm really excited about is who can I collaborate with,
Yeah,
and what is the piece about. But it's also, it could be the best piece ever, but if I don't know that the collaboration will be strong, then I'm not interested.
I can
Or
give you a strong collaboration.
hey, well there we go.
People, if you're watching on YouTube, write in the comments, "Hey
Yeah,
Tatiana, collaborate with John Allen."
there we go. Coming soon. Um, but yeah, it's about that time spent with the other artists.
Yes. Again, it's that family experience.
Yeah,
I look at every guest that I have on my show, for example, as a friend, a
yeah,
brother, a new brother or sister or friend.
yeah.
And I think that's something that's special about being in entertainment, or
Mhm.
in the creative business, as it's so often called. It's that openness. If you allow yourself to be open, you can broaden your world. You can
Yeah,
bring friends into your life, lasting friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, we don't have a lot of time,
Mhm.
but I do want to ask you, can you tell us your best experience, your most fulfilling or most giving experience
Mhm.
as an artist?
Hmm. I feel like I have a couple different answers.
Let's hear 'em
Uh,
both.
yeah. Well, there's the answer that's the best experience for how it felt for me. Um, which was, I did this show in Oregon. I worked at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Um, and actually both shows I did there in different ways, but I did this show called Love's Labor's Lost. It's a Shakespeare play, and that was just the most free I've ever felt because it was
Ah,
outdoors. It was this gorgeous, this huge theater outdoors, and it was so silly. And our director really allowed us to just bring our full like childhood
yeah,
selves into the room,
yeah,
and I felt such a sense of freedom doing that
yes.
show. And also, I think with that one, it was just release and freedom. And that was really exciting for me. Um, I do think there have been other things that were fulfilling in other ways, but the pressure felt higher. Also, at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I did a version of Oklahoma, the musical, where I played
Let me
Curly.
interrupt you. Do you
Yeah,
thrive on pressure? Do you thrive on that?
it's funny.
Is it a motivating factor for you?
I do think I can work under pressure for sure, and I can deliver, I can get through it. It can be stressful though. So it's trying to find, and that's what's hard in this business too, because that's always going to be there.
Yes.
So figuring out how to manage it.
Yeah.
And I think I am overall getting better with it. There are
Mhm.
times where I'm like, I've totally conquered it. Like I'm fine. Then the next show happens and you're
And you get
humbled
humble. Then you
quickly.
get humble.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
No, I'm sorry,
Um,
but again, about Oklahoma, and
yeah.
I want to make it. It's kind of ridiculous that I interrupted you, kind of again, because after our first episode three
Yeah.
years ago, your father yelled at me for not
Oh.
asking you about that
Oh my
performance for Oklahoma.
gosh.
So please tell, because there's
Yeah.
something very special about this. People, tell us,
Yeah,
please.
it was a reimagining. Again, history with a
Hmm.
twist. I love that kind of project. A reimagining of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma, and I played Curly, which has I was the first woman to play that role.
Is that
And
something?
yeah, some of the
The
other
first
roles
woman
were
to play the
swapped.
male role of Curly in
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
And it was Also, I think probably the first time in my career where I was really playing like really a leading role in a full production at a big
Ah,
theater. So that was also the pressure. I start the show starts with a solo that I
that's
sing.
right.
I come on
Yeah.
stage and I remember every single night before I started the show, I always had this moment where I would felt like I could just run outside the door. Like I could just run through the doors and leave the theater right now and not do the show because this is terrifying. Because I stepped on stage and the audience immediately was like, "Oh, this is," I mean, they knew through the promos and stuff, but
Right, but
immediately
still
you're
to see
seeing
it.
like, this
Yes.
is a different version of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
show, and we're gonna immediately decide how we feel about it based on this one solo. So it was terrifying, but then the sense of freedom after I got through that first
Ah,
song
I love it.
was so fulfilling.
What year was this, by the
That
way?
was 2018.
2018.
Yeah, and also I got to do a Broadway show last year and getting to, like, do the check mark of,
Done it.
"Yes, I have performed on Broadway in a new musical," was hugely fulfilling,
Mhm.
you know?
It was with
It was Mr. Saturday Night, the musical starring Billy Crystal, based on the movie
did you
Mr.
hear that,
Saturday Night.
people? Starring Billy Crystal.
Yes.
Okay, he's not just a whoever.
Yeah.
He's that. This is Billy Crystal. I grew
Yeah.
up on his comedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got so excited when your family told me about that
Yeah.
because a lot of people. I guess it depends on your age, but for me, and especially doing the stand up that I do,
Yeah.
uh, Billy Crystal is definitely an inspiration, and it's
Yeah.
kind of surreal. Not kind of. It is very surreal to imagine. I guess it's kind of a corny question. It's kind of a
Yeah.
bad host question, but what was it like to work with Billy Crystal?
Well, it's so funny. I feel like the more and more this happens to me, when I meet people who I
Yeah,
have seen in things growing up or
yeah.
watched on TV, it suddenly becomes two different things. I'm like,
Ah,
oh, there's that person who I watched and everything is one person in the
and then
world.
this
And
guy,
then this guy is a completely,
yeah.
even though it's weird because they have the same body and voice,
But you're
but
in. It's a
it's,
context, I think,
yeah,
and
it's different. I'm
it
like,
kind of you're kind of
yeah,
forced also to realize that I'm not just a kid on watching TV anymore. Now I'm an
exactly.
adult. I'm a
Yes.
professional. This is my art. And
Yes.
yeah, this person here is famous, but
Then you get used to it.
you
It's
kind
kind
of
of
get
funny.
yeah.
You kinda, like, forget that sometimes, like,
Isn't that
'cause
in a
you're just kinda
sense,
used to it.
and I'm not saying we're arrogant, but in a sense, is that not our acknowledgement of our legitimacy of an artist when we can actually work with someone like that and not get all Google eyed
Yeah,
and turn into a fanboy?
and I think that's part of, like, whenever you deal with imposter syndrome,
Yes.
whenever I deal with that, I try to get very, like, scientific. Like, what does the evidence show? The evidence
I
shows
love
that
it.
you have been hired for jobs,
Yeah.
and you have done jobs with these people and these people and these people. So listen to the evidence and don't listen to these silly thoughts right
Isn't
now.
that important to engage in that introspective moment
Yeah.
and kind of evaluate step aside and how would a stranger look at my
Yes.
accomplishments? Well, you know what? It's actually, I'm kind of legit. Isn't that
Yes.
healthy to do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I try to do that with myself. Of course, it doesn't always work, but I
No.
try to remember that. And whenever I have friends dealing
Yeah.
with that issue, that's what I tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Billy Crystal, everybody.
Yeah. Broadway musical.
I cannot remember the name of he had a very very popular stand-up show, a stand-up tour in the 80s
Mhm.
where he went into a persona of a Russian immigrant, and there was this theme of a Russian mother telling her son to always wear a coat.
Oh, I
He
don't
was
remember
always
this.
wear a coat, and he was talking about the
Yeah.
struggles of being in Russia during communism, immigrating to the US eventually, and having to rethink his entire life and everything. It was a beautiful, of course it was funny,
Right.
but there was also a lot of emotion and a lot of
Yeah.
feeling, a lot of retrospection in his
Hmm.
thing. And I was just a kid, I maybe 12, 13 years old, watching this
Yeah.
on the HBO of old, and just so impressed with that man's talent.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to love Billy Crystal. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Excellent that you got to work with him.
Yeah, it was very it was funny how, like, being on Broadway doing, like, this big kind of like big budget, big people thing.
Yeah.
It felt big, but then I also was like, oh, this is the same thing I've been doing my
And it
whole time,
really
just like
is.
a
Yeah.
little bigger. And that was comforting
Yeah.
to be like, oh, I have prepared for this. I have
I
trained.
can identify with that. Now, I don't have the most confidence in myself as a musician.
Yeah.
I know I'm a good composer. I know I'm a good lyricist. I know I'm a good writer, but the actual musicianship,
Yeah.
it doesn't flow when I pick
Right.
up a guitar. It doesn't flow when I play piano or bass or whatever. I really, really have to work on that. But with a little bit of introspection and with a few experiences of people asking me to actually work with them, people who I thought were beyond me, but they come and they ask me to work with them. It's not a Billy Crystal moment, but it's on that same street.
Yeah.
And I talk about this every chance I get with artists, because I think a lot of us sabotage our own careers because of imposter syndrome. Don't brag, don't be arrogant, but take that time to acknowledge. And I'm speaking to anybody out there who's an artist who's listening. You and I know this, but we have to take that time for a little introspection and realize and recognize that we have talent.
Yeah.
And let's get rid of the shyness, get rid of the uncertainty, and actually get out there and make it happen and collaborate with those artists that you know are better than you, but do it with the knowledge that they're also going to lift you up.
Yeah.
I bet you learned a lot working. Let's say this. I don't want to sound patronizing. I bet you learned a lot. No, it's not that. But can you talk about the significance of Broadway?
Yeah. Well, actually, I feel like part of the aspect that I learned the most from was that I was actually an understudy on the piece, which meant I was there every day, but I only performed, when other performers couldn't.
Yeah.
And I had never understudied before. So in some ways, it was less the doing the show was less of the learning lesson. Whenever I went on, I was like, this feels familiar.
Yeah.
But it was like the life of being an understudy was new to me. And they are so undervalued. I think there's been more appreciation for them now because especially in the era of like COVID canceling shows and other reasons for canceling shows, they've been able to continue because of understudies, and it can be really thankless sometimes. It's such a hard job. And so
I can imagine.
Yeah, that was like a huge, huge learning lesson to just like the first time I went on, I had never had a rehearsal on stage with the lights and my costumes, nothing.
Really?
I had I think before the show, I ran through the lines with Billy, had never had like an onstage rehearsal with him.
No.
And then you just do the show. We had understudy rehearsals on stage, but we had the other understudies or like other people doing it with us. So I'd never done any of the scenes with Billy until there was a full audience there. So you learn to trust yourself and just trust the muscles.
Trust the muscles. Learn to trust yourself. Trust the muscles. That's all a part of maturing as an artist. I think the worst thing an artist can do is stagnate.
Yeah.
And again, that stagnation happens mostly because of imposter syndrome. You start feeling like you don't belong, like you're not good enough, like you haven't earned it. And I always try to remember, if someone else told me I sucked as a musician, I'd get pretty irritated. So I try to not think that way about myself. It doesn't always work, but in moments of introspection, I'm like, okay, how would you feel if someone else said that? Same thing as an actress, I would imagine.
100%. Yeah.
In the interest of time, I want to go forward to a new thing. I don't think I did this when you were on last, but I like to ask my guests to do a couple of things for me. The first thing I like to ask you, I'm going to say 3 words, and then I want you to finish the sentence. Did I do this with you before?
No.
Yeah. This is a new thing that has come since then. Okay, 3 words, and then you finish the sentence.
Okay.
Tatiana Wechsler is
chill. And that's kind of that. I mean, a lot of different things with that. Chill as in like trying to be open to whatever things arise.
Receptive.
Yes, trying to be thankful for what is here and for what will come next.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a holistic, new age way of thinking.
Yeah.
Which is beneficial.
Absolutely.
I'm in the same vein myself.
Cool.
And then the last thing I'd like to ask you to do, the second thing I'd like to ask you to do is, um, I think I told you this off camera and off the microphone, but I find you incredibly talented and very inspirational.
Thank
That comes from the bottom of my heart. I think as an inspirational person, I'm sure I'm not the only one who you inspire. I'm not the only one who recognizes your talent. So with that in mind, is there something you can say, looking into the camera right there, something you could say to an aspiring artist? Maybe there's a teenage girl out there who has some hopes and dreams. It might be a truck driver driving down the road who just needs an extra little piece of inspiration in his or her life. Is there something you can say to that person who's watching or listening right now to kind of help them along their way on their journey through life?
Yeah. I would say keep training in whatever way training means to you, whether that's a formal class or your own work by yourself. Keep watching or listening to or following those who you admire and their work and figure out what you like about their work. And find people who you can be yourself around and who think of you when you're not in the room for opportunities.
Ah,
And and mentors, that's the other big thing. I have been
ah,
so fortunate
shout it
with
out.
mentors.
So important.
Many of them have been professors of mine. I was very fortunate with my training in college,
Yeah.
and I will tell everyone all the time, everywhere, that I would be nowhere without them and their guidance. So find those folks in your sphere who you
Amen
can
to
talk
that.
to and
Amen
trust.
to that. Mentoring is so important. And if you have the opportunity to mentor, do that as well.
Yeah.
Seek out mentoring, but also put it out.
Yes.
Uh, Beautiful words.
Thank you.
Beautiful words from the beautiful and talented
Thank you.
Tatiana Wechsler. This has been a long time coming. Thank you
Yes.
so much for doing this. Thank you for being a guest, not only on my show, but also in my home.
Thank
You
you
have a
so
couple
much.
family members in the other room waiting on us.
Yes.
We're going to go back and join them and have a little bit more fellowship with beautiful people. Thank you so much for doing this, Tatiana. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Go out there,
Bye.
love and be loved, and enjoy the process. Bye now. Thanks, Tatiana.
Thank you.